Attention eyes and ears, I say anybody, I repeat anybody has the tools to get a miniature painted to tabletop standard. Not only that, you can do so with minimal time investment. Welcome to Marvel Crisis Protocol's Iron Man Speed Painting Guide, where we help you find the sweet spot between speed and quality at the paint station. To do so, we're going to be using Citadel's contrast paints that provide a one-coat solution that mimics what should usually take 2 steps, that being basing and shading. But because you might want to use a different range of paints, we'll pop the names of the closest equivalents up on screen as we go. First thing first then, you need to prime your model. We're opting to use the complimentary Grey Sear spray can as it gives a look more suited to metallics when the contrast is applied. Of course, if you plan to use a different type of primer, make sure it's a white or off-white because these paints do not work on darker tones. We kick things off then, ironically, with a non-contrast paint, Stormhost Silver. You see, this is the lightest silver Citadel paint, and so although it's only a layer paint and a metallic one at that, meaning it's not very viscous, it's still my current preferred way to undercoat for a metallic finish. The only problem is that it will require a bit of patience with the coverage and potentially a couple of coats. Not that I ever resort to any of that too thin coat scuff when I'm speed painting. But either way, whilst you're covering the whole model, except the chest power source and the repulsor beams on the hands, be prepared to be patient with this, as it will take a little time. But this is all part of the magic. And there you go, look what happens when you break out the Blood Angels red and start painting the hot rod parts of the armour. Being sure to keep the brush on the model for as long as possible, as contrast paint isn't the most forgiving when it comes to touching up. Which brings me to the fact that the trickiest part of painting this model is knowing in advance what nooks and crannies are red and which are not. There's a hell of a lot of panels here, and so having this video or a picture as a frame of reference will help you out no end. All the gold panels require is some Yandan yellow to give the finish we're looking for. There's obviously a lot less of this than there is the red, and note that this is on the face, excluding the eye slits, the upper arms and the upper legs, as well as some of the other panels on the front of the legs. Obviously you may want to mix things up, but if you're more of a paint by numbers type, then just use what you see on screen as a guide. One of the newer contrast paints, Pilar Glacier, were used for the energy sources on the hands, chest and eyes. This part's pretty straightforward because the paint is almost transparent, so you don't need to lightly apply as it'll be a faint colour anyway. Just apply it like you've been doing everything else so far and let the paint do the rest. And would you believe it, we're almost done as we hit up some Basilicanum Grey for the base. Now part of me knows a quick one coat across these Crisis Protocol bases is just about enough to get the job done, but these largely flat surfaces might need a larger brush to get the coverage you need. Remember, try and leave the brush on the model as best you can as you go and soak up any excess pooling as soon as you see it. Now it was at this point, knowing we weren't going to do any traditional highlighting much like we have for all the other models in the core box, that we decided we needed a touch more contrast on the model proper. So Nuln Oil shade paint was the order of the day for all the recesses in the panels on Iron Man's body. Note this isn't a shade over the whole model, just identify the areas that recess that bit more and paint a line in the crevice, much like you would when you're applying a highlight. This step gave everything just that little bit more depth and was a welcome way to finish it off. Which left just the usual Administratum Grey dry brush on the concrete. As I say every time, make sure the bulk of that paint is off the brush because flat surfaces are completely unforgiving when it comes to dry brushing. And if you've got excess paint, it's going to streak the hell out of that concrete. Once done, some Abaddon Black is painted around the edge of the base. Assuming the leftover Basilicanum Grey isn't your cup of tea either, this is a nice way to finish off the base. And there you have Iron Man tabletop ready in no time at all. Usually at this point we give you the option to add a few finishing touches to the model with non-contrast acrylic paints, just to give a little bit of extra pop to the model. But this needs no such love. And would you believe it, that's all 10 models in the core set done and dusted. It's been quite the journey as a bit of an experiment for the channel, but I hope you found this and any of the others you've watched helpful. Alas, I have been the voice of Benji, and this video has ended.